Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the February 10, 2023 meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. I'm subbing for our president, Brandon Huff, giving you a preview of next year so you can get your complaints in early. I want to thank Alex Saharia and Beth Handworker for greeting today, Eric Marcus for his Ticketmaster duties, Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Swick for the great programs, particularly Incident today. And I would like to invite Jenny Jarvia to provide indications. Good. Would you join me in prayer? Oh, Holy Creator, let my eyes be open. Let me awake and see the beauty that surrounds me all around. Let me hear the singing birds that make those wonderful sounds. Let me thank God for my health that has been good to me so far. Let all my dreams come true when wishing upon a star. Let me be thankful for friendships that was lovingly given to me. And let me never forget the caring that was made for me to see. Amen. Okay. All right. Secretary's report, Joe Jenkins.
All right, so we are sitting at 61% today, and we have a handful of guests. Dave, would you like to introduce your guests first?
I have Gwen and Cullen Demarest, attorneys in Beavercreek.
Brian Langford has a guest.
Oh, you put her on there. And Brian, Karen.
Teresa has a guest.
There.
I have to see, actually, we have two guests, Hayden Ferguson, and then Tom Dugler. Let's see, who else? Alex Zahari has a guest.
Trustee Jessica Dean.
Amanda Hayes has a guest.
David Hayes.
And then we have two more. We have John White, and then Jen. How's your last name? How do you say your last name?
June.
Jim. Okay, I couldn't read that. So I'm sorry. Yeah, those are the two guests.
I'm visiting from Ann Arbor.
Okay.
And my daughter lives across the street.
Nice.
Next up.
Glad you joined us today.
Thanks, Jim. And we have a couple of judges who have just to mention that Chief Justice Kennedy, that they couldn't be here today. Judge Lewis from our juvenile court and Judge Tornicio. They're both, well, one of them's in a jury trial, other is otherwise engaged. Diana. Bring it on up. What? He's getting convicted about that.
Actually, I don't know if I can do this today. I get a little nervous over 60%, it was 61%, so yeah. Could be bad. All lawyers. Yes, I know. That's all right. We got some jokes for them too. Today's February 10th, 2023. It's also all the news that's fit to print day. So cream cheese brownie day. International Winter Bike to Work Day. Did anybody bike to work today? No. National Flannel Day. That's where the flannel are gonna bike. And no one eats alone day. And National Umbrella Day. Well, also this week we're celebrating a couple of other things. It's a Boy Scouts 100th anniversary week. So don't be your significant jerk week. Getting busy week. And love makes the world go round, but laughter keeps us from getting dizzy week. So, and National Crime Prevention Week. Today in history, in 1855, the U.S. citizenship laws were amended that all children of U.S. parents born abroad inherit U.S. citizenship. And in 1863, U.S. fire extinguisher patent was granted. That was the first one to a company in Virginia. So in 1870, the city of Anaheim, California, incorporated for the first time. but disincorporated 2 years later because the tax burden was too high. In 1870, the Young Women's Christian, the YWCA, was formed in New York City. In 1897, well, that was 1870, it was 1897, the New York Times began with the slogan, "All the news is fit to print." And for those guys that like the Saturday morning cartoons, Tom and Jerry started in 1940. In 1947, the World War II peace treaties were signed. And in 1961, Niagara Falls hydroelectric project began producing power. Only one anniversary in the club today, and that's Jim Rudd. That's 23 years as a member. In the news, Burt Bacharach passed away. 94. Some of those songs he wrote and co-wrote were "The Man Who Shot Liberty Balance" and "Only Love Can Break a Heart, Make It Easy on Yourself." He had hundreds of them, I think. And on Thursday, the number of those killed in the tremors in Turkey and neighboring Syria passed 20,000, and today it's over 22,000. So keep those people and those rescuers in your prayers. And for those that have an unquenchable sweet tooth, the Dayton Donut Festival on Tour, presented by Plan to Give, is kicking off today, Friday the 10th. So the festival is a self-guided donut tour, costs $30 per booklet. Each booklet includes a coupon to 12 donut shops in the Dayton area, and you get 2 donuts at each one. So might want to get started right after this. Some interesting facts that I came up with. Although India is the 7th largest country in the world, it only has one time zone. I thought that was kind of interesting. The likelihood of getting bitten by a human in New York is higher than the likelihood of getting bitten by a shark in the sea. Great whales exclusively mate in threesomes. That's my response. Wow. People must really want to be bitten in New York because the average rent for one room apartment in Manhattan is $3,400 a month. This next one was really surprising to me. Due to the decline in lion population, that's the lions, there are now more lion statues worldwide than there are lions. In 1916, a law was submitted to the U.S. Congress to stipulate that any declaration of war by the USA first had to be confirmed by a referendum, and that anyone who voted yes would have to go to war themselves. However, that law never passed. And our train route reaches a speed of 21.7 miles per hour before it hits the ground. And at the widest point from Colombia all the way to Indonesia, the Pacific Ocean is wider than the moon. This expanse of ocean is 12,300 miles across, which is 5 times the diameter of the moon. The moon of the U.S. flag was designed by a school child here in Ohio as a school project. His teacher gave him a B-. And I wish Brandon was here because an ostrich can run a marathon in less than 60 minutes. A fellow went into a bar and ordered a martini. Before drinking it, he removed the olive and carefully put it in a glass jar. Then he ordered another martini and did the same thing. After an hour, he was full of martinis and the jar was full of olives, and he staggered out. "Well," said a customer, "I've never seen anything that peculiar before." "What's so peculiar about that?" His wife sent him out for a jar of olives. A Teresa Day that was counseling a state representative said, "Some of our constituents are beginning to disagree with you." The representative said, "Keep tabs on them. When enough disagree with me, I'll change and agree with them." Little Mary said, "Mommy, I was on the bus today with Daddy, and he told me to give up my seat to a lady." Mom said, "Well, that's all right, Annie. But Mommy, I was sitting on Daddy's lap." There was a young lady waiting at the customer service desk for her return. She'd come back to return a pair of jeans that were too tight. The teenage clerk behind the desk said, "Is there something wrong with them?" "Yes," she replied. "They hurt my feelings." There was a mother driving her little girl to a friend's house for a play date. "Mommy," the little girl asked, "how old are you?" "Honey, you're not supposed to ask a lady her age. It's not polite." "Okay," the little girl says. "How much do you weigh?" "Oh, really?" the mother says. "These are personal questions and they're really not your business." Undaunted, the little girl said, "Why did you and Daddy get a divorce?" "That's enough questions, young lady." The exasperated mother walked away as the two friends began to play. The little girl says to her friend, "My mom won't tell me anything about her." "Well, all you need to do is look at her driver's license. It's like a report card, has everything on it." Later that night, the little girl said to her mother, "I know how old you are. You're 32 years old." The mother was surprised. "How'd you find that out?" "I also know that you weigh 130 pounds. The mother was past surprised and shut it down. "How in heaven's name did you find that out?" And the little girl said triumphantly, "I know why you and Daddy got a divorce." "Well, really? Why is that?" "Because you got an F in sex."
That's a good one.
Oh, mercy, you're wrong. Hey, you want to do this?
That's a fine.
Yeah, I heard you. And that's $2 fine. Well, some of us just don't have any sense. God's plan for aging. Most seniors never get enough exercise. In his wisdom, God decreed that seniors should become pinballs so that they would have to search for their glasses, keys, and other things, thus doing more walking. And God looked down and saw that it was good. Then God saw there was another need. In his wisdom, he made seniors lose coordination, so they would drop things, requiring them to bend, reach, and stretch. And God looked down and saw that it was good. Then God considered the function of bladders and decided seniors would have additional calls of nature, returning more trips to the bathroom, thus providing more exercise. God looked down and saw that it was good. So as you find yourself getting older, getting up and down more, remember it's God's will. It's all in your best interest, even though you mutter under your breath. Some important facts to remember as you grow older. Seems to be a theme here, I think. Death is the #1 killer in the world. Life is sexually transmitted. Good health is merely the slowest possible rate at which one can die. Men have 2 motivations, hunger and hanky-panky, but they can't tell them apart. So if you see a gleam in his eye, just give him a sandwich. All of us could take a lesson from the weather. It pays no attention to criticism. And life is like a jar of jalapeno peppers. What you do today may be a burning issue tomorrow. And in honor of our guest today, I had to come up with a couple of legal things. This was spotted on a billboard ad for a law office. Just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. Questions that were asked by an attorney in court. How many times have you committed suicide? Were you alone or by yourself? Was it you or your brother that was killed? Without saying anything, tell the jury what you did next. And now, doctor, is it true that when a person dies in his sleep, he doesn't know about it until the next morning? I wasn't going to put a name to this, but I won't. The judge was sentencing a criminal defendant when she saw a vaguely familiar face. She reviewed his record and found that the man was a career criminal, except for a 5-year period in which there were no convictions. Milton, she asked puzzled, how is it you were able to stay out of trouble for those 5 years? I was in prison, he answered. You should know that. You were the one that sent me there. That's not possible, she said. I wasn't even a judge there. No, You're my lawyer. There's always a couple of positive things. Everything that irritates you about others can lead you to understanding yourself. In 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. Next clients, if you were a Boy Scout, that's $1. If you watch Tom and Jerry as a kid or as an adult, that's $1. If you've been to Niagara Falls, that's $1. Yeah. If you've ever been bitten by a human, don't have a baby, they want you. That's $1. And if you're not wearing your Rotary bib, that's $1. So back to David for happy bucks.
I got one for Dave and Paul. The girls, women's basketball team won their first tournament game last night. Yeah, last night against Springfield, and they play Butler in Troy Monday.
Yes. All right. Plus that happy buck. So some of you may remember my son came in with the swim team. So this is for him. He made the SEC lineup for Alabama. He's one of 3 freshmen to make it. So he'll be swimming on Tuesday through Saturday at Texas A&M. So thanks, Paul. Other happy bucks. Mr. Haddon.
Got one, big thanks and shout out to Shannon. This Sunday, he helped out with the Beavercreek Youth Council doing our mock interviews with high school students. And from what I've heard, he also was doing a little recruiting for Rotary. Well,
Who else has happy bucks? Yes, sir.
I'm John White from Ann Arbor, and I was down in Florida for the last month. I tried to go to 2 Rotary meetings. Neither one of them met because one was the King holiday and the other one was they were on a service project. No information at the site. But I found your website. You've got it up to date, tells you who the speaker is. So thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. We won't say anything about Ann Arbor heritage. Other happy bucks. Shannon.
So a couple of quick things. The Beavercreek hockey team is finishing up their season, and now from here forward, it's all tournaments. And so this weekend is the Swashel tournament. They're coming in at #1 out of the gate. It's going to be good games. If you're not doing anything at 2 o'clock on Saturday or 4 o'clock, you want a little bit of pregame before the football. They're going to be playing at Kettering Rec Center. So they're a great team. They're 22 wins, 2 losses. So pretty sweet to watch them finish out the season pretty solid. So come out and see us.
Happy bucks. Spence. All right, so a little announcement for this coming Rotary year. We're going to try and do some more out in the field service projects. So if you have one in mind or an organization you'd like to support, just let me know directly and we'll consider it on the list. Pancake breakfast, April 15th. So we'll be gathering the organizational part of that. If you know people who would like to sponsor, let us know. All right. Ticket drawing. 324-362. We are down to very few cards. Billions of dollars. Half of the proceeds goes to our Christmas basket project.
I got it.
Jeff Jenkins, he was always supposed to that sales platform.
But he's in the last couple weeks.
Joker.
Yeah, hey, if I get a Joker, I'm just Steven Mason.
Sounds like a sponsor for the pancake breakfast. Next week after the meeting, we have a board meeting after the regular meeting. I would like to ask our County Commissioner Dick Gould to come up and introduce our speaker.
I never have that.
That's true. I again have the great pleasure of introducing a great friend of the club and a great friend of mine. Supreme Court Chief Justice Sharon Kennedy. She first took the bench in 1998 in Butler County and started out in DR Court, Domestic Relations Court. In 2012, was elected as a justice of the Supreme Court, and this past November, she squashed the competition and took oaths. So, like I said, I think everybody in the club knows her pretty well. So, without further hesitation, Sharon Kennedy.
Good afternoon. When I was told that Don was gonna do lawyer jokes, I was like, he's gonna be up for Don the Bad. But since he only read from transcripts and poorly worded questions, I think that was fair. So, no bad titles yet. Thank you for allowing me to come back. I was really asked to talk about what is the difference. Now that I've ascended to the Chief Justice's role, what is the real difference between an associate justice and the chief? And it's all about administrative work. So there are some things that the chief is assigned under the Ohio Constitution that the associate justices don't do. So someone said, does that mean you still have to do all of the casework as the associate justices do? Absolutely. I am still just one of 7 who vote on those cases. So I am still reading those jurisdictionals and all the other materials, which really stack up, at least for next conference, 4 feet tall. I'm still a paper reader. So for me, that work goes on. But what I find most interesting about the chief's role are some of the things that I talked about, why it's really important who serves as the chief. As I said to the Ohio Senate at a meeting, to me, it is all about the separation of powers. I will jealously protect mine, and I will zealously protect theirs from our overreach as well. To me, as the chief, you're really setting the platform or the stage for where you're going to go. So let's talk about those 3 things. The separation of powers issues is very critical because the court has rulemaking power. You can decide the wisdom of this in hindsight. In 1968, because the judiciary was in somewhat of a shambles. Cases weren't being heard on a timely basis. There was no real concerted action between the courts. Everybody was doing something independent or on their own. As a result, there was a modern courts amendment. And in 1968, Ohioans elected a constitutional amendment that allowed the Ohio Supreme Court to enact rules of superintendence. Those rules of superintendence were to be used in order to set time guidelines on cases. So those time guidelines become very important. As a trial court judge, as Dick said, I lived and died by the time guidelines. So every month I had to sign my form as to whether or not I was hearing cases in a timely manner. So judges across Ohio all must report this on a monthly basis. You can actually go to our website and you can look up your judges' names and you can go to what's called the dashboard and you can see where they are in overage rates, the kind of cases they take in. So that's one thing that the rules allow. But what the Constitution says is the court is not allowed to enact rules that really erode a substantive law. What does that really mean? So I've written about this in lots of dissents, so I can publicly say it. So I take issue with Superintendent's Rules 44 through 47 because they rewrite the Public Records Act. And they rewrite the Public Records Act in such a way that judges never have to pay the statutory damages or pay attorney's fees for failing to turn over records or court costs. And I have written in all of those cases that constitutionally that is infirm. The court does not have the power to do that. That the Public Records Act was enacted in 1963. In 1968 is when the Modern Courts Amendment came. The rules of superintendence are only related to rules of lower courts courts of appeals, courts of common pleas, municipal and county courts. Can't apply to us. So as a result, I argue that we have violated the Constitution, and I'll continue writing about this. Some have joined me in my decision that I have interpreted the Ohio Constitution correctly. So as we continue on, that's still my quest of the separation of powers. As I was speaking to the Federalist Society, I was really talking about that, but also something else. It's very clear under the Ohio Constitution that the rules of superintendents cannot be used to rewrite a statute. But yet 4 voted to do exactly that. And the prosecutor shaking his head. Because one of those rules of superintendents rewrote one of the bail statutes. Because what the General Assembly said is if all of you are judges in a municipal court in the same county, you all set your own bond schedule. But in a bigger county, they didn't want that. They wanted everybody to have the same bond schedule. So they simply wrote a rule of superintendents that really rewrote that statute. So as I have talked about these issues across Ohio, that separation of powers becomes very critically important. So here are some of the other things that the 1968 Modern Court Amendment gave us the power to do, is to write a rule of practice and procedure. But there's a check on that, because the Ohio Constitution, because if that rule passes, it can sunset a law. The General Assembly has the final say over whether or not the rules of practice and procedure actually are enacted. So as the Chief Justice says, I'm talking about those things, it's very important to me that when I'm meeting with the General Assembly, that I'm really having that honest conversation about the separation of powers. But it also, as the chief, you have a power under the Constitution that no one else has, and that is to appoint judges around the state. So I'm in my first month of actually signing visiting judges' requests or requests for a visiting judge. And what I am struck by is the diversity of how the requests are made. Some people are simply saying, give me a judge and I'll use them however I want, because they're rattling off 8 things. Others are very specific. I'm going to take 5 days of vacation. I'm a single judge court. I need a visiting judge for my 5 days of vacation. So I really got to a point in time where I stopped signing, unless they were very specific. And I just sent out a letter to judges across the state, applauding those who actually do give me specificity to understand why they're making the request, but to say, I'm not going to do general requests anymore. One judge was literally asking for the assignment of 8 visiting judges for the same month period of time for any reason that they want. And that was just shocking to me. So as I wrote that letter and actually talked about it, I put in there how much money we're paying as taxpayers to fund the visiting judge program. It's over $5 million. So as you're looking at that, and I say in my final series of sentences, transparency is very important to me as the chief. So you're going to see things that I'm going to talk about that other chiefs wouldn't talk about, where I'm going to shine a light on things so that people really do understand what's happening in the judiciary. So that power of assignment of visiting judges is really an important aspect to me, especially because it costs so much money to operate that program. The other thing that the chief gets to do is when a justice cannot sit on a case, the chief justice exclusively has the power to make that appointment as well. Some of the other things that the chief does as it relates to the workings of the court is all of those administrative things. So I have not just one administrative meeting, I have one every Monday, and then I have one with the justices. And then the chief actually does the scheduling of cases and actually executes those administrative entries that are just procedural. So every day you're getting email after email after email. So if for the first week, it felt like I was drinking from a fire hose because it was just like it was nonstop. But you were just coming off the holidays and just coming off of the day when a working day was still the holiday Monday, so it was overwhelming in that first week. It's the bell curve, right? So you always learn as you go and you'll manage it eventually. And then the other thing is the affidavits of disqualification of judges. Around the state, people can say a counsel or party in a case that I believe this judge is biased or prejudiced against me, or they have a conflict, they have an interest in the case, or for some other reason that a judge can be disqualified. So as I was receiving these requests to make these decisions, and it's exclusively the role of the chief, I asked the individual who assists in this, well, how many of these will I do each year? About 156. So we are also doing that administrative work, the regular coursework and casework, and now these affidavits of disqualification. And then I learned how they had done them in the past, you know, the affidavits. And it was really interesting to me because a master commissioner who is a staff attorney to the court would actually do an analysis and write a memo. And then the chief would review it and review the case and then decide on a course of action. Well, that just really seemed like a lot of work for why are you giving me a memo? Because when I read the case, I'm going to distill it and I'm going to decide what I want to do. So we strip that part of memo writing out of the process. So a process that used to take weeks has now been brought down to days, where I'm making a decision in days, we're writing an opinion. I was literally at a Cincinnati event last night when Abe Blair walked up and said, I just want to thank you for how expeditious the affidavits of disqualification are happening now. Because I told my client we're in the abyss for about 3 months. And wasn't I just shocked and happily surprised when it only took 10 days from the day of the judge making their final statement of whether they were or weren't biased or prejudiced, for us to read the case file, write a decision, get it edited, and get it out the door. From 3 months to 10 days. I thought that was pretty good. I felt pretty proud of myself that someone recognized that so swiftly. So some of the other things you get to do as chief, some of it I was still doing as an associate justice. So many people know about my work with veterans courts. And as a result of that, I had the ability to work with judges across Ohio, sheriffs, prosecutors, lawyers, and individuals who really care about those men and women who have served us and have fallen into the criminal justice system as a result of what I call combat trauma, the invisible injuries of war. So as the Chief Justice, you get to spotlight those kinds of initiatives. So I will continue pushing my veterans initiative called Lean Forward. I am excited to say we're going to do the 9th annual summit this November, and we're going to do it on a concept called Intercept Zero. And to me, this is really the end game for veterans treatment in Ohio. How can we make sure they never come into the criminal justice system? How can we ensure that when they're coming back to Ohio to live their life, that they don't end up as a result of mental health issues or substance abuse issues, things that happen as a result of combat trauma? How can we actually intercept them before they ever get into our system? So I'm really excited about the summit that's going to happen this November. We are so grateful to all our partners in the past, particularly Attorney General Dave Yost, who has always allowed a stipend or a grant in order to help fund this program. He himself is taking the initiative on the criminal liaison piece. So it's a military liaison plan within law enforcement agencies, so that they know who they're dealing with when they start dealing with people in crisis. They know they're a veteran, they know where they've served. So that's been really great. And my other big initiative, and I'll end after this, is reentry. A couple of years ago, the General Assembly truly recognized that if what you want to do is to stop recidivism, that when an individual is timed out, they have served all their time, they've paid their debt to society, that you have to help them reintegrate back into society because they've been in prison for years. So how do you help them live that life? So I've met many men who've served 20 or more years in prison, and it's rebuilding a life. How are they going? Where are they going to live? Right? So it's all of the first things. Where are they getting their meal? Where are they going to live? How do they get a job? And how do you put them on that path of living the life restored? So the General Assembly recognized that. And right now in Ohio, there's a group called Reentry Coalition. So when that inmate has timed out, they're really trying to create that situation where they're helping with those life skills and making sure they don't come back to the system. That's real. In 1985 or 86, when I was a police officer in the city of Hamilton, I responded to an alarm call. I knew it was a good call because Sonatrol, the alarm company, said we can hear them in the store. So as I entered the store, the gentleman, the young man, was doing nothing. He was literally sitting in a chair. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I've been waiting for you." His story was he just got out of prison. He had burned all the bridges with his family. It was snowing and icing in the middle of a storm. He had nowhere to go. He didn't know where his next meal was coming from. He was homeless in a winter storm. And he said, "I've been in prison 20 years. I understand prison. I'll be, quote unquote, cared for there. I'll get meals. I'll have a bed. I understand the pecking order. I just want to go back because I can't live outside." That is a story that has stuck with me my entire life. And you cannot erode or erase those experiences that you have. I wouldn't want to. So as they're working on that, we actually do have a pretty big footprint in being able to do judicial release. So the General Assembly has set up the criminal sentencing structure that allows judges to bring individuals back to society earlier than their completion of their time. When I first started talking about reentry as a justice, though, we only had one reentry court in Ohio. Today we have 7. It is my greatest hope that as Chief Justice and meeting with judges across Ohio, that we are able to grow that program so that we can create that support system, so that the men and women who are returning never go back to a life of crime, never return to our criminal justice system or to a prison in Ohio. And I think that's what we would all want as Christians. We believe in second chances. We believe in the life restored. We believe that everybody has the opportunity and can turn their life around. So as the 11th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Ohio, that's what I'm doing with my time. I am excited that I am back working 12 and 14 hours a day. I love it. I'm a workaholic. So that is nothing for me. It really takes the place of I'm not living out of my car on the road anymore. I did that for the last 4 years. I am grateful not to do it anymore. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's always my greatest pleasure to come back. May God bless all of you. Thank you. New title.
I won't mind you, Chief Justice, I'm just subbing here. I don't know. Thank you. In your honor, as has become our custom, we're dedicating a book to the Greene County Community Library, the Beavercreek Community Library here. Next week, our graders are Jim Rudd and Judge Pelly. Our speaker is Brandon Huddleston, our Greene County Administrator. Please keep an eye on the website for upcoming events and our Facebook page as well. Is there anything else for the good of the club? Shannon.
One quick thing, on your way out, your guys are gonna see some Beavercreek hockey posters. Take some, put them in your business, take them home. If you're looking for Isaac, it's the one on there with the biggest cheese right in the.
And keep in mind, tax day, April 15, pancake breakfast. We're gonna build back on that. Okay. If everybody would stand for the pledge.
Won't let me change it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't have a good week.
You actually had it. Just double click in front of the day.
I did.
And you started typing in CH. I. No,
I'm not a.
I.
Hang on. I gotta save it. Otherwise, it's dead, right?
That's right. There you go. No, we didn't.
She just thank you.
Share.
Just share. Thank you. There you go. Service fixed. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, keep on. Yeah.
I didn't think that.
Well, thank you.
Very.
Yeah, you can bear. Marriage. No.
Let me know when you're scheduled. Go grab, no, the last one. Great, great. Awesome.